Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to EFA87 on this Thursday, June 18th. Early morning edition here. You can see behind me the light of the sun that is rising ahead of me here. Calling it for a very hot day today, right? And that's, what is it, 6:25 right now a.m. Calling it for a hot day today. I'm going to talk about hot. We're going to talk about how they were dropped like it was hot, right? I'm talking about law enforcement. I'm talking to all of you out there. Do you find it how amazingly fast you guys were dropped and into the Defund Me campaign by your own politicians? Like if you look around the world, if you look at, I'm not talking about your general population here. I'm talking to all law enforcement of all type, enforcement of any type, right? Like all these Defund Me campaigns. Have you seen how fast some of them, your politicians, your leaders, dropped you? Just like dropped you, like dropped you off. Like we're not with them. We are not with them, right? And the sad thing about that, and in any industry that I've worked in, whether it was enforcement or whether it was government, non-government, business, non-government, you do have that 10%, right? And I've always said this before: it's not Adolf Hitler that took over all the world, right? It's the him and his people, and him and his people probably only accounted for like 10%. Like 10% of the hate, of the anger, of the individuals that should not be in positions. There's individuals that should not be in positions of power, that are in positions of power. There's individuals that are politicians that should not be politicians. We should be defunding everything, because pretty much 10% of most, if not all, workforces, you would have that 10% that don't belong there. In my experience, it's always been the minority that ran the majority, right? The minority always led the majority. Why? Evil, hate, loud, etc., right? Like loud. If I look at loud right now, when I look back in 1991, when I was in corrections back then, and I did my career in government, 27 years of it, going forward in different enforcement. When I started, there was a lot of paramilitary structure, very paramilitary structure. The people that were in positions like lieutenants and higher, superintendents, and all that. A lot of that democratic. I'm going to call it balance, a centered type mindset, very paramilitary, structured democratically, support your country, and etc. That kind of mindset was in power. And over the years, there was a lot of changes. And one of the biggest changes you see is enforcement. In the world of law enforcement, like police, and I can't even comprehend the human resources nightmare that they went through for the last 20 years, because the ones that I managed in all those years and over those years, it's mind-boggling changes that people were put in positions that should not be in positions, right? They were, because of all these, what we want, and I've talked about this before. I remember being on competitions in corrections in Ontario, where the application actually said male candidates need not apply. They were trying to increase the female officers, so they actually had competition that said male candidates need not apply. So we weren't allowed to apply. Think about that. And that this is when I'm talking like 90s here. Like it wasn't that far ago. But anyways, at that time, all these changes started transpiring to lead where it is today. Where it is today, we have my hat goes off to all law enforcement out there that try to do their job on a day-to-day basis now. With the world of cameras in your faces, everybody's looking in your face, taking a camera. I can't even comprehend. Like some of those videos, like the average human being would pummel the person. The average grandmother coming out of church would pummel some of these punks on cameras that are in the officers' faces, just trying to antagonize them, the average grandmother coming out of the church would just drop kick him right in the throat, right? But that said, we've empowered them. We've empowered those individuals, and those individuals, some of them are in political type positions. They matured over the years. They were the same individuals in their 20s and 30s that got in, and now they're 50 and they're 40 and they're 60, and they're positions of power, and they're the ones dropping you like it's hot. They're the ones that are dropping law enforcement just like that. They just jumped the line just like that, because they were never there for that intent. They were never there for the democratic. They were there to change the system. It's like all those individuals you try to go see You go and then they everywhere, right? Whether even comedy clubs, you have hecklers now in comedy clubs, political hecklers that try to destroy everything, every conversation, even comedy, right? Even comedy, and it's so amazing that all they do is yell. All they do is yell. You put somebody intellectual there that starts interacting with them and starts bringing out facts and starts bringing out data and starts basically giving intellectual type conversations with them. It drops apart. They just get louder. They get louder, and they try to disturb. It drives them nuts that there's a integral fabric within a society. They want everything for free. They want everything for a program. They want everything given to them, handed to them. They you can't offend them, but they can offend everyone. You can't say nothing to them, but they can say everything to you. Those mindsets are now in positions of power, and those mindsets that were empowered are now in power, right? They were empowered and now they're in power. And those are the ones right now why this fabric in the society is falling apart. It's falling apart because of those individuals. And those are the same individuals that drop law enforcement just like that. They dropped you like it was hot. They went against you because they never with you. And I'm saying with you, I'm talking about a democratic society. They were never for the democratic society. And that's why if you look around the world and if you look at the pattern, I tell people just look behind you, what's coming. Right, look behind you because some states and some parts of the world they've been working really much harder, and they're getting more results, right? And more of those individuals are in positions of power. Hence, what we have today. They drop law enforcement just like that, and there's a huge imbalance in the world right now, and the direction they're going into is not the right one. There's individuals that should never be inmates. Not all inmates were criminals. Not all inmates were criminals, and there's a lot of inmates that your weekenders, PTSD veterans, locked up every weekend because they were going through struggles and they've been locked up. Phone calls. How many men did I see go through those doors that their house were being cleaned out? Their spouses, whatever, call law enforcement, make up something, and every Friday we'd have busloads of them, and then their house would be emptied, and on Monday they'd be released, and their families, these men's families. I remember one sister called me one time telling me this is wrong. Everybody knows this is wrong. Everybody knows my brother did that. Everybody's standing outside the house there, but she's emptying the house, and this is wrong. Nothing I can do. I agree with you. The world would agree with you. And I remember telling her that the system is what's wrong, right? The system caters to that. The system allows for that. So therefore, that's why your brother's in jail. There's nothing we can do at the institution. We get these calls at 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, right? And for concerns family, and a lot of these individuals were inside the institutions that didn't belong. He wasn't an inmate. They weren't inmates, but the system basically got them in. I used to always tell people, don't get caught in the system because you get all these talking heads managing your life. And those same talking heads now, 20, 30 years later, that I talked about earlier, that had really no democratic intent. They just wanted to change the system. They wanted to change everything about the system, and they're doing very, very well at changing the system. There's a lot of big groups out there that you think are after your best interest, and you think they're out major money makers in positions of power that started 20, 30, 40 years ago. Today, they're monsters. They're monsters. Right? You want to talk about viruses? You want to talk about underlying issues? We have groups out there, very powerful groups in the world, that are in positions of power, and they're destroying every essential part of our fabric. And those are the same individuals right now that want to defund the police, just like that. And when I first started in corrections back in 1991, and the people that were in power back then, or positions of anything, from a lieutenant all the way up, they were democratic. I'm going to call them balanced. They were paramilitary. They were structured. They would have thought things through all the time, right? Not just like that. They just drop you like that, right? And this is why we have these situations right now in the world. We have the monkeys running the zoo, and I say this, right? There's people that are destroying everything, and if you let monkeys run the zoo, that's what happens, right? They start pooing everywhere. They start destroying everything at the zoo. They start ripping things apart, et cetera, et cetera. You can't let the monkeys run the zoo, and that's what they've done. They've allowed the monkeys to run the zoo now, and now they're in positions of power, and now they're changing exactly what they want to do. They are changing the system, they are changing you, and they're forcing you to be part of a new system. And that's what's happening to us. Every single one of us, from the defunding of the law enforcement, from the destructions of cities that are going on around the world, from people that are on soapboxes with no knowledge, training, and experiences, with microphones in their hand, from those that are wearing suits now that are dictating our laws and policies and that have no interest and no fabric of a democratic society. They just want to change the society to their vision of what a society should look like. That's where we're heading. Not people that are smart, not people that actually had the knowledge, training, and experience behind them, not people that are in the best interest of a democratic society are making decisions. And this is why we're in the situation we're in. And this is why you see the defunding campaigns of law enforcement in the world by individuals that have zero interest in a democratic society.